Hello, folks. Back at it again. It's Lindsey Huddleston with SPS, the SPS Edge podcast. Sorry we missed you guys last week, but we blame it on this COVID schedule, man. We're healthy, but we were all over the place. But we're here. I got my guy Terry McCord Jr., the young Jedi, holding us down. I want to give a special shout out to the SPS team for just holding it down. Orlando Watkins, John, the sports insider, and Patrick as well. There's people working behind the scenes and in front of the camera making this great. But Terry, we back at it. Another great lineup. You got your fingerprints all over it. Terry is the master producer, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I mean, it's good to hear basketball buzzing in the city as teams keep playing and as their schedules keep bouncing around. Like my old high school, Eastern High School, got 3 games in a week, and it's good to hear everybody talking about those basketball conversations. You know what I mean? Everybody's going out there playing and doing what they can during these very tough conditions, but it's good to see that the games are back. I've been there and watched a couple games, and it was different. It was different watching it again live and really seeing things instead of like over there and hearing commentators on TV. So it was good to see that, though. I'm really happy.
No, that's great, man. We were asking for, we were wishing for, and now that it's here, I think people have to keep perspective because, it's a hard way to go. And I'll be honest, man, I'm tired now. I've kind of hit that part where thankfully we'll be on the halfway part. And I just think with my schedule and between me attending games at Michigan State, I'll be watching your guys from Ohio State play tomorrow. We'll talk about that later when John comes on. To checking out some other SPS games. I was down at Catholic Central the other day checking out a freshman phenom. You got to keep an eye on Chaz Lulis. Shout out to his dad, Chris Lulis, who got us down there, Coach Shinawi at Catholic Central, and my guy Brandon Barrett, coach over at UPrep. Got to check him out. And of course, we got to see Hamtramck. We got to see River Rouge, and got some other. I'll be going up to Saginaw, check out my guy Kevin Marshall, and then coming week check out the Bearcats. So it's an active time, man, and I'm just thankful that SPS has a platform. Also, man, I got a chance to go down to the Capitol today to check on my guy Burt Brown, and he's made a big move with his lobbying company. He's merged with another huge lobbying company, Kelly Cawthorn. But the other part about it, it's important why I'm bringing it up. I'm down there with all these elected officials and the lobbyists. They all like, man, SPS is killing it. So these are non-sports people. These are people in the political world. And I'm talking about multiple people, Terry, coming up to me like, man, I love what you're doing with SPS. And it was a great thing, man. So you're part of that, and I appreciate that. And we got a great lineup tonight, that I credit you with. But the first is talk about what happened last night, man. MSU had a big game. I don't think anybody saw that coming. You can say they did. I think my guy Stephen Bardo made a comment like, hey, you better watch out. And he's an Illini alum, but nobody saw Michigan State coming in and cracking them boys, them top number 5 ranked team, potential Final Four, if not national championship team, right in the mouth. And what I said to Tom Izzo at the end of the game when I posed a question in our press conference, I said, hey, do you think Illinois came in focused on your record and not your trophy case? At the end of the day, you're a championship program. So give me your thoughts on that game, what you think about it, and, what kind of implications that may have with the NCAA committee when it comes down to tournament talk.
Yeah, so I thought this game was very important because the last 5 games, I believe that MSU has to go at least 2-3 or 3-2. I prefer 3-2 these last couple of games. I think they have to beat Maryland and they have to beat Indiana just because Indiana's around that bubble, that one of those bubble teams that they say that they're going to get in, but there's still a big chance that they may not if they lose to a team like MSU, and MSU could fully take their spot. I think that, they have to beat. I think if they split one with Michigan, I know as well as Michigan's been playing, I think if they split one with Michigan, even if they lose to Ohio State tomorrow, if they split one with Michigan, I think that will really help their cause to get in there. And as I'm looking through and looking at the committee and what they may be thinking, I go back and think of that Virginia game that got canceled and never got rescheduled. Virginia is ranked. They're not the best team, but that does help your resume if MSU, during their hot streak, I think that would help them. But a guy that I really loved, and it was great to see him play, was Marcus Bingham. I think I love seeing his activity. 3 blocks last night. I don't care about what he's scoring. 3 blocks. I mean, he was going against Kofi Coburn, a great big man inside for Illinois. I think his play, as you see the games coming up, they got to go against E.J. Liddell, who's been playing amazing. I love watching him play. They got to go against Hunter Dickinson again.
Freshman phenom out of DeMatha. Shout out to Coach Mike Jones at DeMatha High School in D.C., but go ahead.
and they got to go against Trace again from Indiana. So, I mean, the big man play is going to be very important for Michigan State. They got to defend without fouling. They let Illinois get 34 free throw attempts. There's something that they got to improve on a little bit, but they're hitting their shots. So, I mean, if MSU, you see what's going to happen with the team like that that's starting to hit their shots, it takes a little bit of pressure off your defense because you're able to combat them and score more points. So it was a great game for MSU. What a better time to get hot than late February and coming into March. That's when it's needed the most.
You put it very well, man. I also want to take a moment and shout out our sponsors, our multiple sponsors, starting with the Horatio Williams Foundation, Gilead Science, as well as Dick's Sporting Goods. It's because of them we're going to be able to continue to bring this message and share it far and wide. And I can't say enough about Horatio and what he's doing. But you made an excellent point, Terry, and I want to stay on that for a second because the team I saw Michigan State last night looked like a championship team. They were going up against a potential Final Four, if not championship team, and they outmatched them. I like how you brought out what Marcus Bingham, because it wasn't about how many points he had. It was his presence. The block shot against Kofi Cockburn. I mean, my goodness, you would think because of the 200 pounds or so he might be giving away to Kofi, it was still, he got in there and got that clean block. And then Marty, it was unfortunate with the flagrant piece and what happened. But at the end of the day, it was talking about a game of toughness, man. It's like they came out and they played tough. And I think, myself included, it's been so long since we've seen that kind of play from Michigan State. I'm going back to last season that when you see it, you're almost surprised. But I got to give credit to Tom Izzo, man. He has consistently been saying in the press conference, like, look, I'm not making excuses. Just a lot of things got to come together. So he's been like this mad scientist working on all this stuff in the COVID area, and last night was a part of it. And the comment and their war cry lately has been connectivity. Stay connected. And that's to be working. That's probably going to carry them all the way through. So it's definitely something to see. I want to keep with this great lineup you got for us, before we get to those Big Ten picks later on. And, really want to just talk about a little bit of high school ball before we get to the next level with the NBA. There was a huge game the other night. It was Hamtramck versus Orchard Lake. That was a big matchup. Shout out to my guy, Dennis Foster. Like I said, another SPS team of the week. Dennis has felt like the Rodney Dangerfield of high school basketball. That might not be a name you're familiar with, but I know John and both Orlando know about this guy. Rodney Dangerfield was a comedian, when I was much younger, and his whole thing was, I get no respect. No respect. You got to tell me how my Rodney Dangerfield accent, but that's what Hamtramck was talking about, because they spent the whole summer, Terry, going around playing teams to the point where other competitive teams said, dog, we don't want to play y'all no more. Like your guard play, Javier Simpson and James Clay, their guard play was so dynamic that guys didn't want no parts of them. And some could even say they were being ducked, but they matched up against Orchard Lake. They took an L, but it was a great game, and I'm just thankful for what's going on with that program. But I just think, man, high school basketball is something we got to look at, man. It's here. What's been your take, man? You talked about going over to your alma mater, Eastern. Shout out to Coach Dave Jones and Justin Christian over there at Eastern. I love Eastern. That's where I got you from. That's why I make a club with you. That's why I got love. So tell me what your take is on high school basketball right now in the state of Michigan.
I think basically pretty much we're asking a lot of these younger, previous underclassmen to mature really quick. And that's something that I've seen not only from Eastern's team, but I've seen that from Sexton, Everett, you name it, Hazlitt, Okemos, these teams that they've been playing. I think Eastern is so hard because they lost, with us, with the leadership and us being there and knowing what was asked of our coach. It's really hard because these guys didn't have a summer league. They didn't have preseason scrimmages, like we mentioned before. Those are really key to understand the kind of culture, because these guys play JV. But JV is nothing like varsity. So you got to learn and get accustomed to what's asked at the varsity level. Some things just don't fly on the varsity level. Bad shots equal turnovers. Like some things that you just cannot, that don't correlate to the varsity level, which is something that, we've been really trying to get out of them and really, kick out those bad habits, because it just doesn't work at this level. And so with them playing like every other day, this week, I'm glad that they got a great win last night. They're able to play Tuesday and they'll play Friday. It gives them some more time to gel as a team and really learn what it takes to win on a consistent basis. But some weeks they play Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I mean, that's loaded. I mean, not only body fatigue, but mental fatigue, and you're trying to learn these plays and put it together. There's nothing like learning on the whiteboard and going out there and doing it against other players. So it's really hard for these guys to really put 2 and 2 together with so short amount of time. At one point they didn't know they'd be playing, and now they're like, oh, you're starting, you're the sixth man, or you got to go out there and give us consistent minutes, consistent points, and it's really hard for these kids right now. But I think it's something to keep an eye on is how they play going into the district, similar to MSU, going on and playing well, getting up to that tournament time and seeing who's hot and seeing who's not. I think that's where it gets key because everyone makes the tournament again, just like in football this season. But everyone makes the tournament in basketball every year, so it'll be key to see these teams who are kind of struggling but are deep and have that structure and that culture that is needed to win games in March.
Very well put, Terry. And I can comment on that based on what I'm seeing at the collegiate level. And before I do that, I want to shout out the Streets of Talking Podcast Network. Shout out to Don Houston and Clarence Babor and their national and international appeal and allowing our voice to be heard on the airwaves. And again, to our sponsors, Dick's, Gilead, and the Horatio Foundation. I echo that comment you're making, Terry, because it's being said on the collegiate level, and we see it there. And Tom talks about the importance of the summer, and I think that's equally important. Like, guys weren't hanging out playing basketball in the summer and doing summer league just for kicks. That's what you needed to help get your team on track. And I think nobody saw this coming because we were all so pressed about let's get back to hoops, let's get back to play, which is fine. But nobody was saying, well, it'll come back. It's going to be so condensed. I mean, we're talking about we're a week away from March, if you will, and then season's over in April. I mean, overdone, kaput, and that's it. And it was like all that time had been going into that. So this is part of that COVID fallout. And you're right, man. Nobody got time to gel. You don't got no time to get your legs up under you, but you got no choice but to play. And that's the trade-off. And the other part is Tom Izzo always put, everybody's going through it. So your issues are just, hey, the issues you got. And you got to be fortunate because you could be in a position where, like some programs, you get shut down because of COVID,
Right.
So you can only hope for that. But what a great transition. We've been talking about college basketball. We'll definitely get to our Big Ten picks really soon. We'll bring John, the insider, in a moment. I know Patrick is landing in a helicopter right now. I think they're going to land on the roof again, and then once they get settled, we'll get them going. But let's talk about the NBA, man. Let's talk about the controversy that I think may have died out, but it was mentioned before about the All-Star game. If I'm saying it correctly, that day would be March 7th as I look at the calendar. So that'll be pretty much next weekend, that'll be something to think about. But, it's here. And I think the NBA, despite early on saying they weren't going to do it, I think it's about the money. And to Orlando's point, hey, if you want to make a comment, leave some comments. We love to be able to explore what you're talking about. But what do you think about this All-Star break coming up, Terry?
I personally wasn't in favor of having an All-Star game, but the fan side of me is saying, yeah, but, just being smart and knowing the risk of, getting COVID and how everything's been going, I think it would probably say no. But I guess, when it comes down to it, I mean, I was a little bit upset about some voting. One is being the jersey behind me. I feel like he should have been a starter, but I mean, a lot of it.
He gets no respect.
I mean, it's none. It's because he wins the media vote, he wins the coaches and players vote, but I guess supposedly the fan vote breaks the tie. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not a math major, but I think I'm really good at math. I'm like 2-1. I think Lillard will win that one, but I mean, it's one of those things where. Like I mentioned with Zion and all them.
Well, the fan vote is probably weighted more.
Probably, but I think
more weight to the fan vote.
At the same time, it's like, what do these fans really know about basketball?
That's money, Terry. That's the money. They got to cater to them because they're paying the money. Shout out to Gilead, right on time. That's the money,
That's true. I mean, I feel you, but I mean, that's why I'm not upset. Really, it's just one of those things where it's like, again, really, but I mean, really, I'm just happy that they're able to play. Be safe. I think teams are getting more accustomed to this protocol, and we haven't really seen as many postponements as we did in the past. So, I mean, All-Star game, I mean, we're supposed to be entertained, have fun, 3-point shootout, dunk contest. I hope all that lives up to the hype. LeBron and KD are captains, so they pick good teams and, sit back, relax, and really watch the game. Usually it's President's Day weekend, so I usually got time to sleep in on Monday and wake up. But different circumstances now, but I think it's still going to be great.
No, it's going to be great, man. And you make a great point about the voting. I know you mentioned Zion, too. Love to get your take on that. I just realized that it's just about the money, man, and that's the ugly underbelly of, but that's the engine that drives this sport, man. I mean, you can see these guys playing in an empty gym, or you can be connected and have the media all into that, and people trying to get that bread back. Let's be honest, man. People took an L. with the pandemic, and they're doing any and everything they can to get that back. And maybe that was something they had a gentleman's agreement on that they went back on when it came down to. I mean, look at that whole controversy that happened in Atlanta. With fans coming back, like the first day fans come back in there, and those were high value seats. They like, well, we're just, we ain't doing the $35 family night. We got to get that bread back. Speaking of controversy too, after you talk about Zion, I know that our great engineer Orlando had a clip of us for us talking about Cam Newton and something he experienced as well. Horatio Williams Foundation is saying shout out to Tyler Cook. It was up for a second. If I could see that for a second again, I'd love to be able to acknowledge that comment, Orlando. But what was that, Orlando?
I'm gonna jump in. No, I was just shooting a shout out to my cousin Tyler Cook.
Okay.
The Iowa Wolves of the G League.
Okay.
Just got picked up for a 10-day with Brooklyn Nets. Let's hope that 10-day lasts into the rest of the season. So shout out to Tyler.
Congratulations. Hey, the SPS podcast is sending love his way. Tyler Cook with the Brooklyn Nets. We got to watch who their matchup is next and root against whoever they're playing against, unless it's LeBron James and the Lakers. That's my personal bias.
Okay. We got to do what we got to do. Let's find this clip.
Yeah, that's great. And also, I want to go back to what you said too, is that fan vote, they don't know messing with D. Lillard. They didn't mess around and gave him another chip on his shoulder. Right. Oh, okay, I'm not good enough to get starting vote. I'm about to heat y'all for 70 in the offs. Like something great is going to come by that. And I just love D. Lillard, how he just keeps this warrior mentality, like despite whatever happens. And he got this loyalty thing, like I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving this team. I'm not going for it. So we'll see what happens with that. But tell me what you think about Zion getting the vote as well, Terry.
So for him, a lot of people have been saying, that Devin Booker should have been in there. And a lot of people proposed the question, like, so if you put Booker in, who's coming out? I mean, you can't take Chris Paul out. It's his teammate who is the reason why the Suns have almost won as many games. They're about 14 games of wins from what they had total last year. So you can't take Chris Paul out. Can't take Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell out. I mean, they're like number one in the West right now, so you can't take them out. But it's one of them things where it's like Zion was the guy where they were like, should he be in there? His first time All-Star. People still talking about him being in Rookie of the Year conversations.
What's his numbers like? What's Zion? I know you a stats guy. What's his numbers like legitimately, Terry?
Zion, I don't know off the top of my head. I probably should look at that.
Just in general, are his numbers strong?
His numbers have been strong. Like it was a game that they played the Celtics last Sunday. Played amazing. I mean, shot well from the field. I mean, he only shoots about 5 feet from the rim, but shot really well. Played great defense. Rebounds the ball. Automatic mismatch. You know what I mean? Like he's one of the guys who's playing favorite. He's gonna dunk on you. He's gonna make moves, out muscle you, flex on you. He had a great flex and one late in the game against the Celtics, and I'm just like, you can't stop that. And so he's been playing well. His numbers look better than Booker right now. But one thing that gets me though is that one team is 4th in the West and the other team is 11th in the West, and I think that's why I feel like Booker should take the nod, because Zion may be winning and may be going crazy and getting all these numbers, but they haven't really been winning. And so and Booker's team has been winning. And so I guess I'm not really upset at both, but I definitely feel like Devin Booker does need that recognition that he needs and should be in the game, if not next year. So, I mean, players may get injured. I don't pray that on anybody, but he could be one of those, slip in spot and play for somebody. Or somebody might just sit out and be like, I'm not playing this All-Star game, but we'll see. But he definitely needs his recognition soon.
Well, let me add 2 things there. First, I want to give a Zion Williams story. I may have shared it before on the podcast. I think it's so appropriate. My homeboy, shout out to one of my best friends, Demetrius Blackshears. Demetrius Meathead Blackshears. Let me get it right. His girlfriend, who's a non-athletic person, was watching the game with Zion in it. And she was like, oh, baby, he's so big. Look at him. Yeah, baby. That big dude could jump higher than anybody.
Right.
I just thought it was interesting that a non-sports person can see him and be like, what's going on? And he can just say, dude, he's the best you're going to see. But also, too, man, I want to say, here's the thing, Terry, and I love how you and I can have not necessarily a different opinion, but can bring up different points of view. What you're talking about is a purist basketball. The NBA is not a purist league. It's not pure basketball in the sense that they have to cater to the people that's going to be the moneymakers. And I like that, and I want us to kind of continue to have that back and forth because you remind us of the purity of it, who should get a nod. And I can say, yeah, but this is who's selling the jerseys. You know, and then I think like for Booker, for example, he's a scoring phenom. But can Booker actually get a nod over Chris Paul, who is pretty much a blue blood of the NBA right now? You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like it's Chris Paul who's created a continued opportunity for Booker to even shine, and that comes with it. And maybe that means that Booker got to do a little bit more to get into the ball. Hell, damn, Lillard's not even a starter. Look at how that goes.
Right.
Because you got those people who make up the league. You know what I'm saying? They got to balance it like that. You know, the Spider Mitchells, the Rudy Goberts, you know, all those things. But I just think it's interesting. I like the contrast we have here between the purist aspect as well as that. You know, the fact that it's a sport that has to get money and money being made. So let's do this. I think Orlando might be standing by with a clip. And Terry, if he does have that, he'll probably pull up. But can you kind of take us into the discussion about Cam Newton and what he experienced at a recent camp?
So, as you may have seen everywhere, TikTok, Facebook, all that stuff, YouTube. So Cam Newton got into it. Well, I should say the kid got into it, you know, bickering with Cam Newton, picking on him a little bit, you know, talking about how because right now Cam is a free agent. Looks like he may not be picked back up by the Patriots this year. And the kid was talking to him, calling him a free agent. Cam's responding, I'm rich, you know, classic, like, I made it. And, you know, Cam comes up to the kid, as you go see later in the video, basically talking about how, you know, let's talk about it. You know, you say I'm not a great player. Let's talk about what you did. You know, just talking to the kid, giving him a sense of like, talking about how disrespectful he was, you know, and I'll talk about my thoughts about it. I won't spoil that, but I mean, it's very disrespectful, as you guys are going to see right here.
We'll see what we got. Go ahead, Orlando. Thank you. So the one thing I want to point out that I see right here is Cam is smiling. I think that's important to note because he's engaging him, but it looked like it's coming from a really good place. I don't see it as it coming from a place of Cam hurting. He like, dude, I'm rich. Like, what are you talking about? I'm in this. And it's like, what other thing can I tell you to penetrate this? But he's sitting there amongst his friends, this young man is. You can see the coach being an adult no matter trying to step in. But he seemed like somebody put a battery in his back, Terry. You know how that goes. Go ahead. What you think?
Yeah, and as you guys are going to see later on, Cam does mention, where's your father at? Like, let me talk to your dad. Because I think that's something that people need to put a little bit more emphasis on. Cam, like right here, where's
I want to read this for our folks on the Streets is Watching podcast network, you know, because they may not hear the audio because we don't have the audio, but Orlando's done an amazing job of pulling this clip. So Cam says, so instead of speaking or going back and forth with a child, I wanted to have a man-to-man conversation with his father, ! People often forget as athletes, they often see on TV, loved by most, hated by some. People often forget we are the real dads, real friends, and real brothers. I mean, man, that touches my heart. What do you think, Terry?
I agree with that statement because I feel like, you know, I think Cam should still have the conversation with the kid, with the child, just because for him to understand on a deeper level how disrespectful and how he was coming. But I think, you know, it goes along to it that somebody in there is not treating him how to respect an adult, and not only respecting an adult, but like Cam Newton. So like, it's a 7-on-7 camp. We don't know if the kid paid to go to the camp.
Let me read the rest of it. We are the real fathers, real sons, real human beings, etc. With that being said, when I attend tournaments all across the country with my all-star team, and he shouted out Cam Newton 7-on-7, I have given my time, my energy, and my expertise to these kids coming to our program for 11 years. Let me add this. That was a subliminal statement. Say, look, dude, I've been out here for 11 years giving stuff up, and this is the thanks I get. So I think Cam is very savvy. Shout out to his media training because he's very savvy in that there's no way you could point a finger at Cam in a negative way. And then some said many argue the team should not have been so disrespectful to Newton, who was at the camp to help the group of rising athletes. Yeah, it just speaks to, you know, as TJ Kirkland, the comedian, say, who raised you?
Right.
Somebody says, Marcus McKieran says, how can this kid even talk to a pro athlete of any kind like that? Disrespectful. You're right. But it shows you the same platform that we're looking at to get this information. Look, how about this? Imagine me, an NFL MVP, and disrespecting him for no reason. The same platform that we see this on is also the same platform that gets these guys hyped up. Calvin Worthy, too, said the point here is that Cam has done exactly what those kids are trying to do. He accomplished their dreams. When someone does that, spends his time trying to help them better themselves, bro, you shut the F up and listen. Shorty is a whole clown. Should have been booed. Yeah, he is a whole clown. But, yeah, something was missed, man. You know, let me shout out your parents, for example. Let me shout out, you know, the McCord family, you know, and how great of a job they've done raising you. You know, I look at Orlando Watkins and Michelle Watkins. I was talking to their daughter, Kyra, today. Sweet young lady, very accomplished. I can go on and on. Talk about Patrick, you know, who's there. I think he landed the helicopter already, you know, with his dad, John. I mean, all it takes is for you to meet the children for a second. And you know what the parents and the people around them poured into them because of how they act and how they conduct themselves. And to be honest, man, at that age, this is unacceptable. I couldn't imagine Terry McCord coming up to me at one of my SPS sessions over at Eastern High School, just going in and going off and doing the most. I couldn't imagine Patrick doing that or Kyra Jefferson. I think it's about who raised you. And unfortunately, everybody doesn't grow up in a household where their dad is there. My dad, because my parents divorced early and wasn't there, but I just got off the phone with my dad this morning. So I'm like, so that's not there. But my point being is, what about the people around and what about his peer group who's supposed to pull it? See, I want to challenge the peers too. Because there was an opportunity somewhere. Somebody said, man, shut up. Somebody would have put their hand over his mouth like, man, you but clearly there was more of a desire and an energy to go with that than not. And it exposed a lot. And to be honest, man, that's something I'll be talking about. I'll be leaving here in a second, going over to a local high school. I got a call from a coach, man. It kind of like the bat signal went out. He's like, dude, I need you to come talk to my team. I'm like, all right, when you want to put together? He's like, dog, now. Because it's my guy. I was like, no problem. But he talked about an incident that happened that was almost right along the lines of what we're talking about. An athlete did something that was totally out of order for an athlete, period, let alone in school. And then you talk about this whole idea, which is across the board of athletes not being able to handle being pushed. And we talk about being able to overcome adversity. So I just think it's something we got to address. You will hear Tom Izzo talking about it. You hear high schools talking about it. And I think we need to use our platform to put that out there. Terry, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think I can't remember whose tweet it was, but I think that's exactly, you know, the point that I was trying to get. You know, basically, Cam Newton has reached the level of what a lot of guys reach, and some don't even achieve. And so when you have a guy that's giving his 2 cents and trying to help you as a young athlete get to that level, or at least get an attempt to get to his level and be an MVP and be in the league, period, you got to show respect to that. I mean, Cam is out there giving his time. Like I was saying earlier, like he may not have paid a cent to go, but the point is, though, is that Cam is out there giving the exposure. Like the fact that he's playing against Cam Newton's 7-on-7 team, like that's gonna give you exposure. I think you should definitely appreciate that instead of just throwing shade to him and talking about him as an athlete. No one really knows other than the NFL personnel and NFL people what it's like to play in the NFL. Nothing is guaranteed. It's hard. I mean, Cam Newton was asked to go in after Tom Brady with no weapons. Team is broken down, but him and Belichick do what they can to even put a team on the field during the COVID pandemic when they had their outbreak. So don't just sit up here and act like it's Cam. And so Cam probably knew that and decided, you know, in the back of his head, like, man, this dude talking about me playing. Like, I'm not even worried about that. I'm out here to give it back to the kids. And that just shows that a guy that is talked about being a diva, a drama queen, Cam Newton over the course of the years on the media, being mature about it and wanting to talk to his parents and straighten this problem out. My props goes out to Cam for being the mature adult in this situation.
Yeah, and then here's the thing: this is just a situation we heard about. This is just something that got caught on social media, and you know the New York Post and others picked it up. It happens all the time. And then the other part of it is, with that young man at that camp by himself, not being with his friends, would have made that kind of comment to Cam Newton. And secondly, even if you like, oh man, me and Cam going at it, we having fun, like that's almost saying like your mama. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dog, there's like, where are you at with it? But I always want to say, was it more important to that young man to get the support from his peers than it was to realize that this is an opportunity he could have made a relationship? I'll tell a quick story before we get to bring John in next up, you know, to talk about the Big Ten picks. Love to see his face. You can bring him on up too, Orlando, if you want. We'll get going with John in a second. But speaking of that, it was a University of Michigan player whose name I forget, and I'll research that in a little while to bring it up. But he was at a camp that Jimmy Butler was at.
Right.
No, Jimmy was in the league. I think Jimmy was with Philly at the time, right? This young man at the time was at another school before he got to Michigan, and he approached Jimmy like, "Hey, man," he was like, "Can I train with you?"
Right.
Jimmy was like, "What?" Like, okay, you with my guy, you with my trainer, he'll hook it up. So before they got to train, what happened was the trainer called the guy, said, "Hey, man, come on, Jimmy want to meet you for dinner." So they met for dinner and started building a relationship, went to go train, and now they train together all the time. That's because this young man was in a space and had the wherewithal to even pose the question. That's like with you, Terry, when I met you. When you kind of came over to me like, "Hey, man, what's up?" I was like, "What's up?" You know what I'm saying? Hey, you basically like, "Hey, man, let's build a podcast together." Basically what you were saying. Right. I think our young people need to realize that so many times, John, they get so caught up in trying to impress their peers instead of being forward thinking, say, how can I take advantage of this opportunity? Now that Cam is gonna know that young man's name, and who knows, something good may come, but that ain't the way you want to start it off. John, you've been hearing our show. Before we get to the picks, I also not only want to tap your basketball knowledge, but just you as a human, as a person who's had life experiences as a coach. What do you think about that whole Cam piece we were talking about?
Well, it's kids have so much exposure to things now. I mean, with their phone and with their, with everything that they do. And, it's disrespectful, but they don't have the ability sometimes to understand the difference of things. They don't have the experience, and they don't have somebody who has the stability to teach them. So this is just an example of somebody who's not ready for prime time, doing something that is disrespectful, and it's a tip of the iceberg, because I see more and more, not only a kid, but people disrespecting other people.
You're right.
And I see more and more of it every day. And, someone has to grab that young man and sit down and explain some real situations to them, and some things that you need to build a foundation as a young person. It's going to carry you through what you do. And you're looking at a kid right there who has no foundation.
Yeah. They better be lucky it wasn't Archie Manning at the Manning camp. They would send them home. Yeah. They don't mess around. They were like, "You got to go, cuz."
Right.
So with that being said, I think it speaks to a larger issue. And as we get ready to get into the Big Ten picks, I appreciate you sharing that, John, because I'm saying, man, literally, as I was down at the Capitol, quote unquote, I ran into some elected officials and some other law influencers. This is becoming a public policy issue. Getting this next generation, particularly athletes, ready to be able to take on the challenge. Like I said, I got to go over to a school right after this, in the triage mode to help these guys. I'm hearing the same message, whether it's Detroit, it's Lansing, all over, that these young people, one, are not being able to deal with adversity, and two, like we just witnessed, are so out of pocket with the disrespect that some got to give, because what we can't do, what the country can't, what the world can't afford to do, is to say do nothing. Because what happens to my daughter, what happens to Terry's sister, what happens to Patrick, all of us going forward. So it's something we got to put our collective minds together. But I think with this platform, we can do it. So after I talk about our great sponsor one more time, the next voice you're going to hear is John, the sports insider. Him and Terry doing their thing, man. They be going back and forth like dueling pianos. I don't know what the count is right now, but boy, I know it's tight. But I want to thank Dix. I want to thank Gilead Sciences for what they're doing. And, of course, the man, Horatio Williams, and the Horatio Williams Foundation. That, he had a good game last night, but tomorrow I'll be in the building over at the Breslin Center when the Ohio State Buckeyes, one of our panel members has a tattoo of them on his arm. The Ohio State Buckeyes will be in town, John, to take on the Michigan State Spartans. I mean, Tom Izzo is your guy, John. He had a huge game last night. He's done a 2-game winning spree. He's looking like Mr. March. This is his time of year. Tell me what you think about this matchup tomorrow between Michigan State and Ohio State, John.
Well, I just found out that Kyle Young will not be in uniform tomorrow for Ohio State. He is in concussion protocol.
Ooh.
So there'll be one guy down. My question is going to be, can Aaron Henry guard Washington? Like he did a great job on DeSumo last night. Keeping in front of him and not letting them go to the rack. And who's going to guard Liddell? I mean, that's the big question. Now, you're going to have the bigs on. Liddell, you can't foul him like you did last night with Cockburn. They had 20 fouls to give on Cockburn yesterday, and he couldn't shoot free throws to save his life. But you're not going to get away with that with Liddell. So Michigan State has an opportunity tomorrow. It's going to come down to how they guard Washington and how they guard Liddell. If they give up 55 to 60 between those two, they're in trouble. Okay, I think the rest of Ohio State is containable. And I learned something watching Ohio State against Michigan. This was a high-level game. Making shots.
They say one of the best this year.
Well, the coach I was screaming at the coach from Ohio State just before the half.
Chris Holmes.
He tells us, C.J. Walker, stop, slow down. And I'm watching the game with Patrick, and I said, here you go. Guy just can't sit down or watch his players play. You got to coach. Here they are. They're in the rhythm. They're scoring. They're shooting. And you tell them to stop. And you know what happened in the second half when it came time to win that game? He did the same thing 5 times. I counted it. And one of the times was the turnover where the kid threw the ball behind his back and it was a turnover. When your players are man, let them. When I'm shooting the ball, when there's rhythm going, man, sit down and enjoy your players. You've worked them. You've had them practice. You're the engineer of this. Just watch the broadcast and enjoy it.
Yeah,
you know, and if Michigan State can stop Washington some and slow down Liddell some, Michigan State is a legitimate chance to win this game.
That'd be huge. And I think that the term we knew you use nowadays, John, when they do stuff like that, is you doing the most. Coach Holman was doing the most. You're doing too much, man. So sit down with it. Terry, what's your take on that? And I know it's hard talking about them Buckeyes, but we want to hear your straight up take on that. And did you know that one player was going to be sitting out too? Did you know that?
I did not know that. I'm glad I know that now. Definitely might change my pick a little bit, but I mean, one of the things that I would agree with John, that's something that I did notice about that, how they slowed down the pace. And it's almost like it really makes me think of the question of, do you call a timeout when say a team misses a free throw, misses a shot, and you're coming down and it's the last seconds of the game? Do you call a timeout and set up a play, or just play on? I'm a big fan of the play on, because you don't want to give your team a chance to set up play defense. And also, you got to think about transition defense, locating your man, proper help side defense. You know, it's all those things that come to it. So I was definitely upset about that watching the game. I'm like, why are we slowing down? This game is a high pace. You got a guy like Dickinson who tired his butt out like they do Luka Garza, push that pace. But in this game right here, I think it'll come down to if MSU can hit shots, keep up with Ohio State. A guy that I see as the X factor for Ohio State that might give MSU some trouble with Justin Arns. Sometimes, you know, MSU with their help side defense, say a guy like C.J. Walker at Washington, they're going to put a lot of attention on him. And a guy like Washington and Walker are going to get into the paint. They're going to penetrate. And guys like Arns are going to float around the three-point line, look for any chance to get a wide open spot while you help and close in on him and get some open threes. So I think that's something that they have to keep in mind keep in mind definitely, because they tried that zero in on a player like on Luka Garza, and they gave up a lot of open threes to a great shooting team like Iowa. I'm not saying Ohio State shoots like that, but you don't want to give supporting cast players comfortable, wide open shots, especially on the road. Because then it builds confidence, and it's going to be a long night. So I think they limit those. I think MSU has a great chance to get another great win on a resume that's definitely getting some looks right now.
Yeah, that definitely will be a committee win. So we have both John and Terry giving MSU the slight edge, especially being at home. So let's go to a matchup that you guys kind of talked about. Both of these players, some players on both of these teams, same night. That's going to be Iowa and U of M. And my thought is that game is probably going to be at 7, which is why I'm going to be up late tomorrow at 9 over at the Breslin Center. So Iowa at U of M. What you got for that, Terry?
That one, I would say that one's a tough one because I really like the matchups between Dickinson and Garza. That's something that I think is going to be kind of fun in the middle. But I think that Michigan does a great job at pushing you to be uncomfortable. And I saw that with the Ohio State game. They really amped up the pressure, speed you up. And I think if any team can speed up Garza, I think it's Michigan. MSU did a great job the first time doing that to them. Ohio State did a great job doing that to Garza, speeding him up. I don't think he's someone that can just take over a game, but I really think that Michigan will win this game. And just to clarify, I still got Ohio State. Against MSU. I got to go with my team, but for this one, I do have to give.
I'm sorry. I thought you said seriously. I thought you gave the edge to Michigan State. You said the edge is Ohio State has the edge.
I would say the I say MSU does have a chance. By a little 49% chance in my book, but
okay.
I got to go with Ohio State.
No problem. I took it the wrong way, and I'm not trying to change that. So, okay, we got Ohio State, Michigan State. So I'm looking forward to the text message. Like, John, he texted me during the regular games, but I'm seeing if he go text me tomorrow night, with the game going on. If Ohio State is winning, I'll probably get text. Okay, so with this one right here, this matchup, this U of M, Iowa, tell me who you got with that?
I got Michigan. I saw something also against Ohio State. Shondy Brown guarded every position on the floor. Mm-hmm. He guarded C.J. Walker. He guarded Washington. He guarded Liddell. He guarded everybody, okay? This is a weapon defensively that is awesome. This is 6'8" with an NBA body that can move his feet and guard multiple positions. This young man's going to make a living on the next level. I like him to take out Westcamp out of the game. Garza's not going to beat me by himself. Take away Bohannon because I can guard Garza by himself with the big boy and with Davis. I like Michigan.
You like Michigan, okay. And what do we get for you, Terry, with that matchup between Michigan and Indiana? Michigan and Iowa.
I like Michigan in that one because Mike Smith, great point guard. I got Michigan in that one.
Okay. Just want to be sure. Oh, and Mike Smith was a guy that hooked up with Jimmy Butler. Yeah, that was the guy who hooked up with him and whatnot. Okay, let's move on to Saturday. You got Illinois versus Wisconsin. I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in there. I wouldn't want to be the team that plays Illinois after last night. I'm just saying. That's just buzzsaw. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be bringing it right now. And I remember asking Tom Izzo that question I posed, and I prefaced it by saying, I know you had a great relationship with Brad Underwood. We talked about him all the time. He said, yeah, I'll probably talk to Brad in the next year or so. So they just beat him, and he's going to be talking again. So that's telling you the mindset. But that's my 2 cents. But I'll stay with you, Terry. Tell me about this matchup between Illinois and Wisconsin.
Well, Wisconsin, we know, is one of the best defensive teams in the Big Ten. Illinois can score at a high level, low inside-out game with DeSumo and Frazier. Coburn in the inside is definitely someone that gets you a double-double any night. I think with this one, I really think that Illinois is probably going to get this one just because, coming off a tough loss like that, because Illinois was on a little hot streak. They picked up some great wins, and they were really rolling, inching up there to get up to Michigan. But their matchup coming up soon, people are really talking about that game could really show who, with Michigan picking up that win against Ohio State. I think that they were saying that game was really going to show who's going to win the regular season championship in the Big Ten. But Illinois got a little too ahead of themselves. lost I would say a bad loss for them just because of how they were playing. And I think Illinois is going to pick it back up and keep it rolling with this win over Wisconsin.
Okay, very well. To you, John, Illinois versus Wisconsin, what are you thinking?
I like Illinois. I think that Illinois didn't shoot the ball last night. They got frustrated, but I think they'll come back. I think they'll beat Wisconsin. I think they're too good. They play too fast for Wisconsin. I like Illinois in that game.
Yeah, Tom Izzo alluded to this, and please leave your questions or comments here as well, and it'll be heard on the Streets is Watching podcast network. It's heard all throughout the country, even in Africa. And we want to thank Don Houston and Clarence Babor for putting that together, and also our sponsors, Gilead Sciences, Dick's Sporting Goods, as well as the Rachel Williams Foundation. Tom made a good point, though. He said the one thing that works in favor of Michigan State right now is, guess what? Even though there are no non-conference games, you don't need no non-conference games. Your schedule is enough that success on your schedule will get you in. I think that's something we got to keep in mind. All they got to do is win games now. You know what I'm saying? Like, all they got to do is win some of the games they have left, and they're going to have more of an influence because the Big Ten is so good. He made a good point, man. He said years ago, John, you know about that. I'm not referring to age. I'm referring to your experience. How about that? That the Big Ten was nothing like it is right now. Let's talk about what this league is right now. And, with that being said, that same day, let's talk about U of M versus Indiana. What do you guys think about that matchup? I'll stay with you, John, on that. U of M versus Indiana.
Well, I tell you something. This game is really interesting, and I am going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to pick an upset.
Okay, I was wondering where that was going to come. What is this U of M upset was going to come?
I'm going to pick Indiana in this game.
Why?
I think Indiana. Well, I think Indiana is a really dangerous team, and if he plays 4 guards, if 2 of them can play good together, they are going to be tough to beat. And I think that the big fella Jackson is going to he can take out Dickerson a little bit on the high post and take the ball to the rack a little bit on him. I just got a feeling Indiana can guard you. And I got a feeling that Indiana is going to pull off the upset on Saturday. So I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to take the underdog. And I'm going to say Indiana gets the win here.
With that being said, Terry, I want you to hold true to wherever your pick is. But let me add to John's point, and this is kind of a response that Tom gave me to my question last night when I was saying, did Illinois go in there and focus on their record and not their trophy case? You wonder if U of M Tom's response was, a lot of these teams are saying we may not be able to win the conference because we're just focused on the tournament and the Final Four, and they kind of look past teams like that. And I think you leave in a perfect scenario. What I was going to ask earlier is, where is another Michigan loss? You had Minnesota early in the season, and I think people listening to this podcast in this region may hope that loss comes next week in one of those 2 games with Michigan State. But you got to say, is there another one out there? And I wonder if that's going to be when they match up. But, Terry, no pressure on your pick because, when John says something, you got to listen. So what you think about the matchup with U of M and Indiana coming up?
Well, for this one, I agree with John, but I think one thing that really concerns me about picking Indiana is how they put games together, and will they put games together? Because a lot of times you see Indiana, like we mentioned when they played Illinois, that was a game that really was key to me, where Indiana had the control, but they just lost control of the wheel at the last second at the finish line, and they kind of just drifted off to the side as Illinois cruised past and won.
How do you do it, Terry? They drifted off to the side.
It's like off, you know what I mean? But I think Michigan's next loss would be against Illinois coming up. I don't think that the next loss would be to Indiana, just because I think that Juwan Howard really has these guys locked in, and I mean like locked in means that they're gonna take it one game at a time. But one thing that does concern me about Michigan though is fatigue. They're playing a lot of games now. Like we mentioned, it's weird to see a rivalry game played back to back at the end of the season. And so we're seeing, because of how they had their postponements, these games are going to be coming really quick. But I think, Juwan Howard really has these guys locked in, focused one game at a time. I thought the Ohio State game might have got them a little slipping, if they were really, believing the hype and not really focused on the game. But that game showed alone that they will get up for any team, and they're well aware of any team that will give them their best shot because they're going to come right back at them. So I got Michigan.
Yeah, and this kind of goes to John's point, but also in general, you got to remember, man, Michigan's schedule is backloaded. Michigan, like those early wins they were getting while they were wins in the Big Ten, the toughest league, no doubt. But their schedule is backloaded. So despite these guys, you got to keep in mind that COVID fallout. Yeah, they're playing good now. But when you go into this buzzsaw, these back-to-back games, and particularly Michigan State, your in-state rival, bringing it to you a couple times, it's not a done deal. So we'll stay with the last one, Terry. We'll stay with you. And we'll stay with the teams that we're talking about. We're talking about Illinois and Michigan. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this one, I kind of gave a little hint to this one, but I think might be a little upset. I got Michigan. I got Illinois winning against Michigan just because I feel like the Sumo will be the best player on that court, and I think that his supporting cast will be better than them that night. Just because I feel like Illinois does feel like they need to make a case to get a really good seeding in the tournament. I think Illinois is probably a really good, 3 or 4 seed in the tournament. But I think that I think the Sumo, like I mentioned, will really be the best player on the court. I like what he brings, man. He's a really good inside and out scorer. Can really distribute the ball really well. He gets his guys going. You can tell that they play off his energy. That can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing because it shows the level of how your guys are buying in to the system, but also you don't want him to be the deciding factor on if he's not playing well, as we saw him get a little frustrated.
That's nice. Yeah, got frustrated with those free throws, and he was like really gone, got busted in the head, and it was a wrap for him.
So I got.
Remind me of this, guys, before I go to you, John, to wrap us up on this. What is the seeding setup? Is it possible that this game could be a potential a seeding matchup based on the brackets? Can Illinois seed Michigan in the tournament?
Well, I think that the top 4 are pretty much. I think you have.
Okay, they'll be in their separate brackets, so they can only meet. They can only meet in the Final Four.
Well, it depends. Right, exactly. If they all win, you have Michigan. You have Michigan. You have Ohio State. And you have Illinois, and I think it's Iowa and Wisconsin fighting for the 4th seed. Yeah, and then you have the rest of them. So, those top 3 are not going to meet until Saturday afternoon if they win throughout.
John, I want to get your take, but before that, I know that it did happen. There was a Big East National Championship game when it was, I believe, was it Villanova and Georgetown. Has that happened since that a conference championship game?
No. Remember, you also had an Oklahoma, Kansas with Danny and
Danny and the Miracles.
Danny and the Miracles.
Yeah, so that was a Big 12. Was it Big 12 then? It was Big 12 then.
No, I think it was big. It was big. It was Big 8 probably.
Big 8. Wow. Yeah. Man. Wow. Yeah. So John, with the time we have, we got about 6 or 7 minutes, man. Tell us about this matchup that we're kind of getting into with Illinois.
Well, I want to take you into a scenario with Michigan.
Please do.
It's something that they ran Sunday that Ohio State couldn't defend, and they went to it in the second half. In the first half, Ohio State was concentrating on defending the big fella, and they gave up 10 of 13 from the three-point line. And they decided in the second half that they were going to take away that 3. So Michigan went into a set where they had either Wagner or Shandy Brown because Juwan Howard sat down Wagner because he was not producing. And he put Shandy Brown in, and that was one of the reasons he won the game, in my opinion. But they ran a set where they had Livers and either Wagner or Brown, and they had the other guard off guard on the right side of the floor, and it looked like they were trying to run something. Well, it was all in disguise because they had Dickinson and Mike Smith on the weak side of the floor, and they reverse it, and Dickinson comes out and screens, and they run this pick and roll. And Mike Smith was just a surgeon. I mean, passing off the dribble, and Dickinson getting these easy dunks and getting the old-fashioned three-point play. What I'm saying this for is this. These guys are good coaches, and they watch this stuff, and they figure out different ways, multiple ways to defend this set or this play out of this set. And I think someone's going to end up peaking this, and they're going to have a way. And Illinois has an opportunity, but you're going to have to take this stuff away from Michigan. This is where they went to. This is what I tell you when you watch basketball. Watch when you need a bucket. Watch when the shot clock runs down. What do they do?
Yeah.
And this is what they went to. And Mike Smith, I just can't tell you how good I thought he was on Sunday delivering this ball on this pick and roll. You're going to have to defend that.
Yeah.
And when someone learns how to defend this is going to hurt Michigan.
Let me ask you a question, because you kind of touched on it.
This is going to hurt it. Someone's going to take it away from them eventually.
So you kind of touched on it with the videographer and the quick turnaround, this tournament-style turnaround that maybe Juwan Howard isn't as exposed to being in the NBA with a 7-game series. You know your opponent compared to in college basketball. You're like, look, we got to scout 3 or 4 teams. So it's up to that staff to get that turnaround.
Let me say something right now. His staff has done an unbelievable job. Sunday, he didn't miss a beat. Chris Holtman blinked 4 or 5 times, and it was a 4 or 5 point game.
That was it. Every blink
he didn't blink. He didn't blink.
Wow.
He changed. He did things on the move. He put Wagner on the bench like Michigan State put Hauser on the bench last night. You know, and another guy's not playing, Lawyer. Now, that should tell you something about the difference of the junkyard dog I got on the floor instead of somebody who's a Pillsbury doughboy and everybody's taking it.
Hey, you know, and I always talk about this Gabe effect. Van Doc can say Gabe effect on TV. I'm driving down to Bristol to get on them about that, but I've been saying the Gabe effect. Gabe started last night, and they think they finally got that rotation right, and that may be something you see. So with the few moments we have left, John and Terry, you just want to give us some closing remarks, and I also want to thank in advance Orlando for all the great work he's doing behind the scenes. I want to thank Patrick for making sure that Dad is all set and getting there and keeping the helicopter ready to go. I know it's a lot of gas that got to go in that helicopter to fly you where you got to go. But John, with a minute or two, just give us a final word, and Terry, I'll let you wrap up and we'll be out of here.
I was real excited about watching Michigan State play the last couple of times. They're shooting the ball earlier in the shot clock. They're not sitting around holding the ball. Rocket Watts, you see, is a kid that wants to play. He wants to get better. And he showed that. He was tough yesterday. Marble was tough. Sissoko, tough. He was tough. They battled. They fought. That's all I ask. Come out here and fight. Come out here and let's lace them up and let's play.
I got it. Love it. Terry,
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so I mean, really, within these next couple of weeks, we're gonna start seeing, like I mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of these cultures start to come out, like the Izzo culture, Wisconsin culture, Illinois, the Underwood, that they're starting to establish a culture. Not even just the Big Ten, but like we're starting to see guys like, you know, even like Gonzaga, they built like a culture around them, and Houston, even a little bit what they're establishing over there. A couple of teams I mentioned, but we're starting to see these teams start to rely on what they know, and a lot of these coaches are helping with that. So I really think that these experienced coaches will help their teams play really well, because these teams will know what's asked and what needs to be done to make it to the big tournament in March. And so I really think that MSU does have an advantage with that, because they have guys that have been in those moments and kind of know what it takes to get there. And so I would like to tell everybody, you know, pay attention to little things, teams that are doing the little things well, because that's going to be really key when you get to these games where it could be a rebound, putback that wins the game, free throws. All that matters right now. Everything has to take to an account during March.
Very good point. Well, at that point, we're at our hour. Thank you for watching the SPS Air Show. We see you next time. You hit the button, Orlando. We'll be good to go.